Okay, so just rolling out of the parking lot at work. Guess you guys had an interesting day. Second run through doing PyPack calibration sendouts. I mean, I really feel like I did drag my feet today. Though it's only my second time doing that, and I guess the expectation really is that they're wanting to be after you've been here for a few months, to be way more like proactive and independent, I guess you could say. I did have a sort of meeting towards the end of the day talking about just updates and training, and I mean I could kind of catch the sense of the vibe, sort of underlying everything that maybe they're wanting me to be more proactive, like they literally said, and I get kind of sense some annoyance. Maybe they were expecting me to sort of pick up on that earlier. Kind of wish there'd been a little more direct communication on that, but at the same time, like I don't know. I'll step up. I mean, some of these things that I've been, working on for a while to learn, like, okay, I get those things. I can definitely stepping up on that. Other stuff, I don't know. I've had sort of the experience of like, times where I've been a bit more proactive and like I've gotten the response of, we're gonna wait on that, or we're gonna hold off on that, or that sort of thing. And it's kind of like I don't want to use the expression like mixed signals, but almost like the expectation that I'll just kind of get it when it comes to different things. Like, okay, this process, you need to jump on it right away. That process over there, that's not as high priority, and since I've only been here for a few months, I don't know, like maybe there's just things that block me from getting in the communication loop with others in the group, and some of the stuff like I might be able to work on. Other stuff it might just be like nature of the business, or like company culture, or whatever term you want to use. But I mean I kind of felt like, to a certain extent, starting off this week, they were kind of sort of maybe in some sense cutting me a bit of slack, because I pulled so much overtime last week and I did a bunch of extra work. But at this, what the heck is, sorry, I'm just there's some really dumb drivers around here. Sorry. Some lady in a Tesla, she like apparently had gone too far up in that lane and that wanted to like get into the turn lane, and then she saw, there are any cars behind me, so I'm just gonna like reverse all this way back. And it's like, taking a risk when you do that. Luckily there weren't any cars coming. There wasn't anybody racing down that lane who had to slam on the brakes to like avoid hitting a car that's in reverse. People, I don't know, some people need to think, I think, about that kind of stuff. But then again, look at me, staring back at myself in the mirror going, hey, what about you? Then anyways, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, because it to get back on topic, it seems like some folks are just more aware of like stuff like that. I don't know. I've taken an approach since I started here to be way more restrained and quiet. And ironically enough, I think, it's not even just like this place. It's like, I think it's been sort of my nature, maybe conditioning, whatever, for at least the last several years, where if I'm in a new environment, I don't really open up right away. I kind of sort of, I guess, try to get a sense of like what people I'm dealing with, what types of people I'm dealing with, who they are, what their attitude or opinions or nature is, or whatever. They're sort of leanings in different ways, and what they find to be humorous, or what they're find to be whatever frustrating, before I am willing to open up. And I know the last company was kind of like that, and sometimes my old boss would kind of say being able to sort of open up to people, and not be so hesitant to communicate and things of that nature. But I don't know. With my sense of the way the world is and the way people are, especially where I live, there are too many risks. I feel like opening up and being really expressive and all that with people. And I know as much as it sort of protects me from a lot of potential fallout. I've used the example of talking about politics and saying, oh, I'm not going to talk about that because of all this potential fallout. I do see how not being able to sort of be cognizant of, or be in the loop, so to speak, even on a subconscious level, if you will, it at least it's just situations where they feel that I'm not stepping up, or I'm not being proactive, or whatever the case may be, when the reality is I'm being observant, and I'm trying to sort of figure people out, or figure out the workflow or the priorities or something of that nature, because I've only been here for a few months, and I've dealt with coworkers here who seem to, I don't know, they seem to have an understanding of what's a priority and what's not a priority, where you need to be proactive, where you need to not be proactive. And it's more indirect communication, sort of read between the lines, gut feeling, gut check, sort of intuition, sort of a deal where, okay, you're supposed to know that product X really needs to be, put out there, versus product Y, which can, wait. I know at the old company, one thing that I did like, given that they very much were I guess technologically integrated in terms of let's say manufacturing process workflow, tracking and things of that nature. And the reason I paused for a bit was because a cop car went by. But anyways, but that the old company, they were far more integrated in that sense. So if they needed to keep track of some workflow, or they need to prioritize things, there were ways of just looking at one of these boards they had. They had a Kanban, an electronic Kanban board, and you could tell okay, this thing has a little fire symbol next to it. That's high priority, or it would literally say high priority or so, and it was a lot easier to keep track of things and understand okay, this is what we really need to push through. Or the supervisor, when they do a stand-up meeting before we went into the lab, they were okay, here's what's going on, and they paint a picture for us. Whereas I don't really get that sense over here. They do announcements and stuff like that, but it's not I don't know. It just seems less clear to me, at least. Maybe it's just because I'm used to a different style of doing things. Maybe it's because at the old place, eventually once I started coming out of my shell, so to speak, and building professional relationships with people, or becoming friends with my coworkers, it just became easier to communicate. Whereas over here, I don't really feel like that. I feel in many ways I'm just sort of I'm doing work and I'm learning things, but I feel it's more of a trying to stay out of the the iron sights or trying to stay out of the, sort of the spotlight or so, and just like knock down my hours, get certain things done, definitely. But, get through this day, get through the next day, then okay, enough days, okay, we get through this week, then another week, another pay period. And it's sort of been like, okay, just get to the next paycheck, do whatever you gotta do to not like, anger them or tick them off too much that you get written up or you get, God forbid, fired or something like that. Just, do enough good stuff that they either just A, bare minimum don't get rid of you, or B, maybe they go on to the next guy and they cut you some slack, Whereas the other place, and can't always be looking in the past, I know that, but the other place, it became sort of a matter of like, I felt a part of a team. I felt it was in many ways, it was kind of like a family. I mean, we would hang out, outside of work, or we would have like team building, type stuff. And it got to the point where even some of the folks I disagree with politically or, religiously or whatever, they were like friends to me. And so it was, there were days where there was conflict, or we didn't get along, or we got on each other's nerves, or something of that nature. Or there were days where it was just tough because there were like high priority things to push through, and it was like, long hours, But it was enough of a friendly or family-like, or, you're part of a team on a mission kind of a feel, that it became less about Ermagerd, I don't want to get furred, it became more about like, okay, I want to get this stuff done, I want to get these, these products out to the customer because, it's contributing to, ABC, XYZ great cause or something like that. And, the irony is the current company I work at, they do cancer diagnostics. So technically speaking, one way or another, if we're getting stuff out there, we're doing that. But I don't feel that kind of connection with most of the people on the team. And maybe it's a matter of time. I really don't know. It seems like, it's more of like this is a job. And the other place, yeah, it was a job, but it was also all these other things, And I mean, even when it came down to like jokes and busting each other's chops, it was like there were things that we could joke about. We all got, there were so many folks there who were Star Wars fans, so like I could crack jokes that would be like based off a Star Wars reference, and we'd all laugh, stuff of that nature. Like, I don't really know what there is to joke with these folks around about, or if I would even want to do that kind of stuff. And it's that sort of feeling of like not being able to, I guess, vibe with people that I think kind of gets in the way of communication, which is why then I'll end up like sort of being, come off in their eyes as like as if I'm just sitting there, wasting their time, almost like stealing money from them, not being proactive, etc. And there are some folks on the team where I'll feel like, willing and able to like step up and communicate with, maybe one or two of them. But the others, it's like I don't want to ask questions. I don't want to be like, okay, which is a higher priority, because, and, again, see, I don't even know. This is something that I've gone over like multiple times. I mean, and it's not something I just feel. I know that I have given, comments I've made in the past, and comments people have made on my videos. But it's always this sort of like, with some people, you ask a question, they look at you and they're like, didn't you read the instructions? Or like, obviously we want to do this more than that, or we want to get this done earlier than that, or obviously, or, and it's just like, no, it's not that obvious. And maybe I read the form, but I've only read it once because I literally just got assigned it, and I've only been here for 4 or 5 months, and they just changed these forms and added a bunch of new stuff to it. So no, obviously it's not there, and no, I haven't read it, or I did read it, but expecting me to memorize 50 different steps in some process like that, when half of them got changed and the other half, okay, maybe I remember the basics of that or whatever. Memorizing part numbers or lot numbers, or it's like it's almost like, okay, I'm sorry to like bug you about this. You've been here for 3 years, you know this stuff. I'm asking you, like, what should I do? Or if I want to jump up and be proactive, like, am I gonna get told off by someone? Stuff of that nature. And obviously there's some context where if it's the end of the day, end of the week, maybe somebody just wants to be done and be out of work, and they don't want to have to sit there and explain. I sometimes understand that. Like, even now, like with the pipe calibration center stuff, like, I feel like I was going on a wild goose chase for the longest time, and then, maybe I didn't see some stuff in the instructions that I was given, this form, or this sort of like how to do, it's like to do guide or whatever, and I stupidly went and asked the supervisor because everybody else had gone, and she was kind of annoyed. I get that, okay, but there are other cases where it's like, okay, I'm literally doing this for the first time, this process or whatever, like, why you gotta be flipping with me? And again, like, I don't know how to express that to anyone in charge. And then, of course, there's also the expectation that the boss is going to take the other person's side because, I don't know, they've been there for 2 or 3 years. They've done all this great work. Everybody likes them. It's kind of like back when I was in undergrad, and it was like the leader of the pack. He could do no wrong because everybody liked him. He was popular, and people would smoke pot with him and that sort of thing. And there I am, Mr. Straight Edger, Mr. buttoned up Oxford cloth, I don't want to say normie, but like square, Mr. Square, not liking this, that, or the other about what he said or did, or how he's approaching things or whatever, and not appreciating being humiliated by him, or not being recognized for extra work that I did, or even a simple thank you or so. And it didn't matter whether or not he was right or wrong, and that it was a matter of like, he's popular, they all know him, he's been in this clique or this club, so to speak, literally or figuratively speaking, for all this time, and there I am, Mr. Outsider, and even if I'm right, it doesn't matter because he's the insider, so to speak, and it's kind of that same sort of expectation that even if I had a legit, complaint to make, like, hey, I don't appreciate his demeanor towards me, or how he responds if I ask, or how she responds, or whatever, it'll be like, well, they'll probably come up with some sort of thing like, well, it's kind of like, we hired you because we thought you were also experienced and that we could expect X, Y, Z of you, and blah, blah, blah. But, the truth would be that, we take this other guy more seriously, or, he's perfectly within his rights. And part of that, obviously, like I said, being that, you got the insiders who have been there for a while, and then you got the outsider, and it's sort of like, it makes sense in terms of human nature, like that, okay, you're going to obviously, like, lean more towards or favor the person you have some sort of relationship, professional or otherwise, with. It does make sense. It just kind of sucks being on the outside and then having to sort of, especially when your money is tied to it, your income, your survival is tied to it. And again, like, I'm always like, I was concerned about potential fallout, and man, there was a point in this sort of meeting where I could tell they were like getting sort of, subtly hostile, where it was kind of like, okay, so you're telling me you want me to like communicate this or ask questions if I have questions or bring stuff to your attention or if I have suggestions or whatever the case may be. And, at the same time, it feels like a trap always. Sometimes I'd say that's more so here. Sometimes I'd say like multiple places I've worked at, whether it was my internship or the last place I worked at, it kind of feels like a trap. Like, okay, we're going to pretend we want to hear what you have to say, but we're just going to use what you say as a gauge for whether or not we want to keep you here or whether or not you're a problem or not, And stuff like that's on my mind right now. Because like I said, I feel like I did drag my feet and I got stuck on some stuff that really is, as it turned out, very simple, not too complicated. And I was trying to get this stuff sent out today, and I have the send out date as, today, so I don't know if I'm going to have to go and edit some forms. Perhaps the electronic record I may have to edit, but I really hope it doesn't cause any major problems, because plan is that I get in tomorrow. I try and go in a bit early, maybe half an hour early, and pass off the box with the pipettes into the warehouse folks when they come in. Just make sure that I'm getting it in, technically speaking, before hours, as far as like when I'm supposed to be there. But yeah, it's stuff like this that, like, this is why I can't be getting distracted by outside issues. I know I've had these videos I made where I've talked about stuff having to do with my family or, other things, and it's kind of like, this is why I just can't get caught up in those things. Because I'm obviously dealing with other things going on at work, and that's where, like, the priority and the focus should be, because that's where you get your money that you need to pay for the cost of just being alive, keeping yourself alive, keeping yourself off the streets, keeping a roof over your head, putting food in your belly, so to speak, literally and figuratively. And I really don't know how I'm going to sort this sort of stuff out, because it oftentimes feels like, just like, and I use the example of my time in undergrad when I was in the chemical engineering club and I was part of the leadership. It was sort of like, we have you here because we need you here, but not because we want you here. You have a certain skill set, you have certain connections, you have the ability to go and do certain things that we can't. But if we were going to throw a party in, we were going to invite people, you wouldn't be on the list, that sort of thing. And like, I had that literal experience in college where, and it was involved the one-eyedest girl, because she was also, I don't need to belabor the point. I really don't want to be like making it seem like I'm still like obsessing over her. I'm over her, but it's sort of a lesson learned, and I use these examples to illustrate points. Like, I know like Rich Cooper's talked about his experience with one-eyedest, and it's like he's obviously over that girl. It's from way back when I think he was in high school or just out of high school. But use that as a point as an example to illustrate a point. But like, it was right after I basically, like, almost single-handedly secured or facilitated, and ultimately, I was the one making it happen. They did eventually come around, the other members of the board, and do their part, but it was really only I'd say 90% me pushing it through. But right after I'd secured corporate sponsorship for the organization and gotten this nice technical lecture or symposium or expo and a whole bunch of other stuff done, and the the leader of the pack wanted to throw like a party at his place, and then he invites the one-eyedest girl and a bunch of other people, and including the professor who was supposed to be the liaison between the department and our organization, and they're all chilling there. And I saw the video of them, doing shots and all that, and I know I probably still wouldn't have gone because I don't drink and I don't like being around that sort of stuff, but I didn't even get the courtesy invite, even though I had made all that stuff fall into place, but it was ultimately like I said, we have you here because we need you here because you can do stuff that we are incapable of doing, or not that we're incapable of doing, but that just it would be extra effort on our part, extra work on our part to go do, and we need a set of hands to do this for us. You're useful, or you can make yourself useful, or you have a certain skill set that would make you useful, but we don't really like you. And I'm sure people may say, oh, there's things you could do to make that be the case, but I really don't know about that. Some people that is the case, that you can, but other people, not really. And I think ultimately it's almost like when Rollo Tomassi talks about you can't negotiate desire. It's almost it's like that. It's like you can't make people like you. You can't force people to be your friends. You can learn to be civil enough with folks to be able to get work done, make that money, that sort of thing, and maybe through that process some connection will be built. But it's kind of like when I've had talks with friends who were in the military, it was kind of like if there was no external enemy, their unit wasn't under attack or something of that nature. It seemed to be very easy for folks to start hating each other and ending up in conflict and so on. But obviously, if the bullets started flying, things started blowing up, they would fall back on their training and just, deal with the enemy as they needed to, and then they could go back to sort of hating each other. And, it's kind of it's kind of like in the Night's Watch in Game of Thrones, I think season 4, episode 9. Art imitates life imitates art, that sort of deal. So you can learn to tolerate each other and to get work done, but it always feels like, at least at this place right now, there's that one thing missing that would make everything sort of click, and then I would just I'd be in the loop. Subconsciously I would know, this is higher priority or that's higher priority or things of that nature. And obviously it would be really nice if they had some sort of system similar to what the old place had, where you could kind of see, okay, if this thing, like I said, that example of having this sort of fire symbol next to it can be on the electronic board. It's it's symbolically on fire, which means it's hot, and hot means high priority, and that sort of deal. Somehow, and I think, with the other company, they started off about 8 years ago. So by the time I started there, it's almost like they'd had their time to sort of work kinks out in the system, so to speak. They had certain things figured out, and I'm sure if you talk to folks who worked there within the first 3 to 4, maybe even 5 years of them being in operation, they'd have their, this place has all these issues. They do things a certain way and it's inefficient or brings about a lot of personal conflict or whatever the case may be. And then it's okay, after those first few years, they kind of figure it out. Okay, do this, don't do that. Here's what the company culture should be like. Here's how our workflow should be. Here's how we deal with XYZ problems, both, personnel related and, technically related, and And the company I'm at right now, I think they're only a few years old. I think they're going into their third year, or it's going into its third year of like life. So obviously there's a lot of stuff to be sorted out. Maybe some of it is like sort of the going from being in startup phase to being a fully fledged, established company, and just learning how to do stuff. Like I have given suggestions, so don't get me wrong, I have given suggestions about different things, but I've kind of got shot down over those things. Like, for instance, if we have in terms of good documentation practices, like common errors that we make, let me back up a bit so I don't get hit. Oh, I guess he's turning. But like common errors made on documentation, like having a key, where different letters represent certain things, and you could like put that letter next to your little footnote, and people would know, okay, here's what it was. They could refer back to the key. But that got shot down, and it's more up to QC to make their decision. But I guess they want you to write a paragraph if you make some dumb mistake. And that's just how they want to do things. But yeah, that's stuff I'm dealing with and I'm concerned about, and I don't know, maybe I could set sort of an informal meeting, but at the same time, like, I kind of get the sense that, like I said, even if I had a legit complaint or concern, it's gonna somehow be like reframed as it's not us, it's you. Like, oh, there's some problem with this or that, you should tell us. And it's like, but I do tell you, and you basically get flipping with me. So how am I supposed to be informing you or why should I be informing you if informing you gets me told off or written up or something, which I have not been written up yet. I shouldn't say yet. As it stands, I have not been written up. As it stands. Don't like using the word yet in this case, because that might imply that, it might eventually happen, which I'm doing whatever I can to make sure that doesn't happen. But, sometimes it kind of feels like being in the Empire, and, you don't want Lord Vader to find out that, you brought the ships out of hyperspace too soon, because that just means getting your trachea crushed and you're dead, sort of a thing, as opposed to with the rebellion where you might make some mistake, but since they can't afford to get rid of you, or maybe it's just their nature, they let you live and you learn from your mistakes and you get better. You don't just die like that. And okay, next one up, step up, that sort of deal. But yeah, stuff on my mind. But like I said, tomorrow, plan is, assuming I get into bed early enough, plan is to get up early enough, get there early enough that I can just go and drop that off, and I can just notify whoever that, hey, it's been taken care of. And hopefully that settles things. But again, like, it's kind of getting to that point where, I know some stuff they can legitimately expect me to step up. Other stuff is kind of like, okay, like, I'm just supposed to sort of understand that this is what you're supposed to do, or the expectations or whatever. And it's kind of difficult and frustrating, but guess somehow I gotta find a way. We'll see how that is supposed to manifest. So anyways, I will see you folks around. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye.